There we go. Okay, so good morning, everybody. We are just a reminder, not a reminder, but approaching Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to have a class next week, unless something happens last minute, but we're scheduled to have a class next week, and then we're going to take a break for the Chagim. And last time we completed Psukei Zimra, and we actually went into the brachot of the Yotzer. And what I would like to do is to continue the brachot of the Yotzer, and to be more specific, to discuss the kedusha of the Yotzer. So just kind of summarize the structure of that. What we're dealing with is we started that Shema section. We said that we recite the Shema on a Torah level at least twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. In the morning, on Shabbat morning, we're looking at page 406. All the unit. We have the two blessings prior to the Shema, right? The Yotzer or Yotzer Meorot, and then the blessing of Ahava Rabba. Then we have the Shema, then we have the blessing of redemption. And we said that also we have a parallel, pretty much a parallel structure, different elements, but parallel structure also in the evening service, in the Mariv service. And of course, the brachot themselves differ between the morning and the evening. Obviously, the Shema itself is the same Shema, but the brachot, the blessings themselves, are a little bit different, even though we're talking about the same themes. Now, what do we have? This is just a little recap because we said it all. What do we have in the Yotzer? So we're talking about nature, we're talking about the luminaries and all that kind of stuff. Then we move from that general, very broad discussion of God's, let's call it, as the creator. It's like, and we said that is one of the themes here is creation, moving into another theme of tefillah, which is revelation. That's going to be in the next bracha. It's in Ahava Rabbah, which we talked about. Our special relationship with God through the Torah, mitzvot, all that kind of stuff. So that's obviously a reference to the revelation at Sinai, and narrowing even more into my personal relationship with God, which is the Shema itself, and which is the third part of that, of those elements. If we said we have creation, we have revelation, and that leads into redemption. And indeed, that's what we have after the Shema, is the blessing of redemption. We say Gal Yisrael. Okay, so this is kind of the structure of the Shema unit. And now I would like to delve into that. So just kind of, again, we said that we have the beginning of the bracha. We said it's based on a pasuk from Isaiah. We said that the pasuk of Isaiah is a statement against dualism, right? The religion or the belief that at that time that God cannot be the ruler of both the good and the bad, right? It's impossible. If God is all good, then God is not in charge of the bad. So come the Chachamim, and they changed uvore et hakol instead uvore et hara. Instead of using the pasuk from Isaiah, Yotzer or uvore choshech, ose shalom uvore et hara. God, right, is the one that also responsible for the bad stuff. Come the Chachamim and kind of generalize it to include hakol, everything. God created everything. It means the bad and the good and everything else in between. Okay. Then we talked about the, yes. Correct. 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 So we said we have this poem, we have this expanded Yotzer on page 408, and then the Piyut, the poem in 410, we said it has a structure of Aleph Bet. Each phrase starts with the next letter from the Aleph Bet. And then what we said is that the next paragraph, the bottom, the second half of 410, is the Yotzer, the expanded Yotzer, which is specifically for Shabbat. And therefore, if you look there, I didn't bring my reading glasses from again, but if you look there, La'el asher Shabbat mikol ha'ma'asim, to the God who's created, who is rested from all the works, right? Who ascended on the sacred day. I can't read. I can't read that. But as you can see, that this is all talking about Shabbat, talking about the nature of the day as the day of rest, the day of tiferet, of splendor. It's oneg. It's a day of delight, etc. And it's a special day. Fine. Then this is where we're getting now. That's the second paragraph on page 412. All that part is what we call the Kedusha de Yotzer. Now, what is the Kedusha de Yotzer? So first of all, let's understand what's Kedusha, and then let's understand why we have Kedusha de Yotzer, and then we understand why, or what's the functionality. So Kedusha, when I tell you Kedusha, what comes to your mind? Something holy. Okay, fine. Now, if I told you Kedusha, or the way we say Kedusha, as part of the tefillah, as part of the service, what comes to your mind? Okay, but not specifically in the liturgy, in the tefillah, what happens? Right, what we call the Kedusha, right? It's during the repetition of the Amidah, at the end of the second bracha, during the repetition of the Amidah, whether it's during the week or Shabbat, on Shacharit or on Mincha, when the Chazan repeats the Amidah, after the second bracha, after Mechayeh HaMetim, we go into Kedusha. Now, the Kedusha is one of those things one of those prayers that we can recite only in the presence of a minyan. Okay? And it has a very, I know it sounds like weird when I say it, but it has a very clear and distinct structure. So if you're thinking about the different Kedushot, like between weekdays, Shacharit for Shabbat, Musaf for Shabbat, you say, what are you talking about? They're all totally different. So let's delve into that for a second, just understand the structure so we can go back to the Kedusha de Yotzer, okay? So if I'm looking on the weekday Kedusha, I'm looking for Shacharit, for example, I'm looking at page, it's here, the bottom of page 100. Okay, and the bottom of page 100, like under the line, you will see that the core of Kedusha consists of 3 verses. One from Isaiah, that's Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvaot Melchol Haaretz Kvodo, holy, 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 right? That's a verse from Isaiah. The second is Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkomo. That's from Ezekiel. And then the third one is from Tehillim. Yimloch Hashem le'olam Elohai yichtzin ador ador. Hallelujah. That is the core of Kedusha. Every Kedusha is going to have that. We'll see in a second why I call it that and not exactly that. Okay. Now, on top of that, the opening is what we call the invitation for Kedusha. Okay, or the opening for Kedusha. During the week, what we call the simple short Kedusha, Nekadesh et Shimcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom. Let us sanctify your name, just as it is sanctified in the heavens, as it said by your prophets. And then it leads us into the pasuk, holy, holy, holy. There are different nuschaot. Sephardic nusach said na'aritzcha, okay, whatever. Nagdishach v'na'aritzach kesod. It's the same idea. So, what do we have in the core of Kedusha? An opening, the verse from Isaiah, the verse from Ezekiel, and in the Kedusha, at least during the Amidah, a verse from Psalm. What do we have on Shabbat, for example? Let's just look at the Kedusha in Shacharit for a second. Look at the bottom of 422. So again, we have the same opening, Nekadesh et Shimcha ba'olam. Okay, the invitation to engage in that act of Kedusha. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then we have, you see that pasuk, holy, holy, holy. Here we have an extra line, which tells you it's a addition. Okay, then we have the line, the verse from Isaiah, and then we have like a little poem, and then we have the verse from Tehillim. If you flip further to the Kedusha of Musaf, so we're looking now, page 464, and the bottom, whatever. Okay. You'll see we have, it's a different invitation, it's a different opening. It's na'aritzcha v'nakdishcha kesod se'ar sarfei kodesh, but again, it's the same theme, it's the same idea. The pasuk, holy, 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 with a little poem attached to it. And then we have the pasuk, Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkomo from Isaac, with a little poem attached to it. And then we have the Shema. We're gonna, when we get to Musaf, we understand why we have the Shema over there, and with a poem. And then eventually we have the pasuk from Tehillim. Okay, so the structure of, just a sec, of the structure of Kedusha is kind of the core is the two verses from the three verses, basically, right? Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Psalm. Okay, now we understand that. We have, in addition to the Kedusha, during the repetition of the Amidah, we have another Kedusha. Actually, we have two more. One is during the Yotzer, which we're going to discuss in a second. And the other one is what we call Kedusha de Sidra. Just going to give you a, so you'll know what I'm talking about. If you go to page 154, 154, yeah. So towards the end of Shacharit, every day, on Shabbat, we take that Kedusha de Sidra and we push it to Mincha for social reasons. I like it to call it social reasons just because the tefillah is already long, people are hungry, they want to go home, or actually to go to Kiddush, have some cholent, and therefore that part of the service is being pushed for Mincha. But if you look at page 154, you will see that again we have the Kedusha. You have it, it's like in bold, even. Kadosh, 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 that's the pasuk from Isaiah. Smack in the middle of the page, Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkomo, that's the pasuk from Ezekiel. And Hashem Imloch Leolam Va'et, towards the bottom of the page, that is from Shirat Hayam, right? The book of Numbers. However, it's a same theme as Yimloch Hashem Leolam. Hashem Yimloch Leolam Vayelech. It's almost the same. It's the same. It's the same theme. It's almost the same words. And it's here. We have that verse instead of Tehillim. When we discuss the Kedusha de Sidra, we'll understand why the switch. Okay. So what is Kedusha? What is going on? What are those verses taken from? Why do we recite them? And what is going on here, both from historical perspective and theological one? So the first verse is Isaiah. It's a very, 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 very famous pasuk from Isaiah. Isaiah is having a revelation, a nevuah. He has a vision. In that vision, you can read it. I think it's the 6th chapter. He has a vision of basically what's happening up there. Okay? He sees the angels. He sees the Kiseh HaKavod, the holy throne. He sees all that stuff. He sees the angels, like, in their position and what they do and how they respond to each other. Okay? And based on that description and what they say, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, 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 Hashem Tzvakot. Meloch ol haaretz kevodo. The whole world is filled with his glory. This is a quote of what the angelic beings are saying in the heavens. Okay? Now, the structure of Kedusha, the way we understand it, it's not only that verses, like it's to create, to kind of describe what's happening up there. So it's a combo, obviously, the vision of Isaiah, the vision of Yechezkel. Those who were with me when we studied Sefer Yechezkel, remember we spoke about that a lot. I think it's the 10th chapter. And it's also a combo of, it's also what we called Safrut HaHeichalot. Okay? The Heichalot liturgy is a series of little books that are part of Kabbalah. Okay? They're part of Kabbalah, and they talk about all the things with the angels and all that kind of stuff. Okay? So some of the elements that we have in Kedusha is taken from Safrut HaHeichalot. Heichal, sanctuary. What? A palace, a sanctuary. Okay? It's like as if there's like a sanctuary up there in Shamayim. This is why many times a shul is called Heichal. Or in Ashkenazi tradition, we actually call the Heichal is Aron HaKodesh. In Sephardic tradition, Heichal is called the Beit Knesset itself. Okay, fine. So we have a description of Isaiah, and we have a description not as detailed as Isaiah, but also the same similar information that we get from Ezekiel. And this is where the second pasuk, Baruch Kvod Adonai Mimkomo, is coming from the book of Ezekiel. So what's going on? There's a debate why this is here. Okay? The traditional, there's like scholars, modern scholars have like all those theories that it's a later addition, whatever. The traditional approach is very simple. What is this that we're doing here? We're describing nature. God, as we called it, God of creation. Right? So when we talk about the luminaries, we talk about the heavens, we talk about stars, then it's kind of natural also to delve into what's happening there. There's a whole action there. The angels and whatever, all that kind of stuff. Now, we don't really know what's going on there, except for what Isaiah and Ezekiel told us. Therefore, it's here. Now, there's another theological idea. Kedusha, as I mentioned, the Kedusha during the repetition of the Amidah requires a minyan. Why? Because the concept is to recite the Kedusha. You need a minyan because you're transforming into something else. Okay, that could happen only in public. Public is represented by a minyan. Now, I don't need a minyan here in this Kedusha. Okay, for technical reasons, it's not part of the recitation of the Amidah. The repetition of the Amidah. Repetition of the Amidah itself requires, okay? But from a theological perspective, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tap into something more mystical. I'm trying to, to go into, I'm thinking about creation. I'm getting ready for the Shema. What is the Shema itself? It's Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim, accepting the yoke of heaven. Okay? And where I'm going to draw my inspiration? It's the angels. What they do, if it's good enough for the angels, that's what we're trying to do. Because that's what we're saying in the Kedusha. Nekadesh Shemcha ba'olam, we're going to sanctify your name in this world, kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei, just like they, the angels, sanctify God, your name, in the heavens, as it says by your prophet, that they turn to each other, meaning those angels, and they say, holy, holy, holy. Okay, that's the description that Isaiah tells us. Yeah, you have all sorts of groups of angels, and they talk to each other. How do they talk to? How do they do this idea of sanctification of God's name in the heavens? By saying Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So what do? We say, we're going to do the same thing here. Can we do it on our own? Yes and no. So when it's a communal part of the tefillah, like the repetition of the Amidah, I need a minyan for that. If I'm here, let's take a look what it says. I will need a volunteer, somebody to read that paragraph Tidbarach, because I don't have my reading glasses. Terry, good. Oh, yeah. And the English. The Hebrew I can do. The English, yeah. The Hebrew I can do. The English I can read.
May we bless our rock, our king and redeemer, creator of holy ones. May your name be praised forever. Our king, the fashioner of ministering angels.
413 in the middle.
All of his ministering together loudly the words of the living God and King of the universe.
Okay, so just a sec. So we have, right? Already we're starting to build it. We're going to talk about those ministers, those angels, those angelic beings, all that kind of stuff, right? So God created them, and they're there, and mashmi'im be'ira yachad kol divrei Elohim chaim melech olam, and they proclaim the words of God. Okay, now we go into, now this is very, very poetic. You need to understand all that stuff, and this is taken. That's based on what I called earlier, the Safruta Heichalot. This is all Kabbalistic, based on this Kabbalistic material. Okay, Kulam Ahovim. Yeah.
Interesting that first it says what they do, and then it describes them. It seems like.
Well, what they really do, it's going to come later, though.
They're all beloved, they're all flawless, they're all mighty. They all do the will of their maker with dread and reverence. And they all open their mouths in holiness and purity, in song and hymn, in bless, praise, glorify, revere, sanctify, and declare the kingship of.
Right. Right. And why do we say that? Because we want to draw inspiration from that, because we're going to do the same, or at least we're going to attempt doing the same. Okay? Yeah, the next one, the Shema El, the name of God.
The great, mighty, and awesome King. Holy is he. Then they all accept upon themselves the yoke of heavenly sovereignty for one another, and grant permission to one another to sanctify the one who formed them.
Here we go. So this is to sanctify God's name. And now it's going to be a description how they do that. They ask permission from each other, and what?
Clear articulation and with sweetness.
And what did they say?
Master of creation, the whole world is filled with his glory.
Okay. So this is a description that we get from Kabbalistic sources that is based on the verse of Isaiah, based on the vision of Isaiah as he described it in his prophecy. Okay? And then it continues, "V'ofanim b'chorot HaKodesh."
And then the Ofanim and the Holy Chayot, with great noise, raise themselves towards the seraphim. Facing them, they give praise, saying, "Blessed is the glory of Hashem from his place."
Right. Now, this pasuk is taken from the book of Ezekiel. And Yechezkel has also a prophecy. We talked about it. That's in the beginning of the book, it's Maaseh Merkava. He sees the chariot. And then later on in the 10th chapter, he goes even deeper and he's able to see what's going on over there. And what happens is that he sees also those angelic beings, and they're like, some of them, they're Ofanim and the Chayot. Okay, and they turn. Ofanim comes from the word ofan. Ofan is a wheel. So when we learn Sefer Yechezkel, we realize that there's this chariot, the Merkava, and the bottom of it is Ofanim. It's like I have those wheels that they go like in all directionals, like 360 kind of a thingy, you know. And this is how that chariot is able to move. Okay, that's the simple understanding. So, but it's not just like a metal wheel, it's a form of a angelic being, whatever that means. So it has the ability also to do something.
It's like way better.
Of fun? How? Of fun? No, that's often. Yeah, no, it's a different. Okay, so but maybe there's a connection there. I don't know. Interesting. So you have the Ofanim and you have the Chayot, and they have this conversation. And what did they say? Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkomo. If you remember, back to the classes in Sefer Yechezkel, what is happening? Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkomo. They're saying it as they see what? Anyone remembers? The Shekhinah what? Leaving Beit HaMikdash. Yechezkel describes the journey that the Shekhinah is taking. It has different stops. It goes from Kodesh Kodashim to this, to that, to the Eichal, whatever, like all those stops. Then eventually to Har HaZeitim, and from there it continues east, basically giving the Jewish people that a sense that's going to go with them, right, as they go to Babylonia. Right, Yechezkel is giving most of his prophecies already in Babylonia. He was exiled with the elite before the destruction of the first temple. He has a little bit, he gives a couple of prophecies prior to destruction of the first temple. Then he gets into this period of a couple of years of silence. And then he got the message. There's a palit, there's the survivor that comes from Yerushalayim and tells him that Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple was burned, and then he continues with most of his prophecies. And actually, those prophecies already like for the purpose of consolation, because the temple is already destroyed. There's no point of that rebuke. It's already done. It's too late. And so in our terminology, this is a major pasuk. Why? Because the rabbis felt, what is going on? There's a description of the Shekhinah, right? The divine presence leaving Beit HaMikdash and going. It means it goes with the Jewish people. And they say, Baruch Kvod Hashem mimekomo, from his place. Where is that place? Wherever it is, all over the world. So that means for you Jews in Babylonia, that's comforting. Yes, things are horrible, things are bad. You know, they were sold as slaves and whatever. And however, God is with you. Don't think that the fact that the temple was destroyed and burned in Yerushalayim, that's the end of the story. That's the end of the relationship. No, it's not the end of the relationship. God's glory is blessed from his place. What place? Anywhere, even Beverly Hills. It could be anywhere. You just have to listen and you need to, right? Okay. So that becomes a major part of in our liturgy and in our theology. Then, if you remember when we talked about the Kedusha, I said that there are 3 psukim. There's got to be one from Isaiah, one from Ezekiel, and one from Tehillim. Or we saw in the Kedusha the Sidra that it was replaced by the pasuk from Shirat Hayam. What is going on here? It's not here. We don't have anything like that. So because this is, again, it's not real Kedusha. However, it's not a pasuk, but a allusion for that. Allusion for that is at the end of the bracha. Look at the 4th line from the bottom of the page 412. It says, Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu mehera leoro. Now I want to ask you a simple question. If we're talking about creation, we're talking about the luminaries. Okay, I get it. We're going to talk about the heavenly, whatever, the angels, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it still makes sense. That's all part of nature. Okay, creation. Zion? Yerushalayim? Okay, so this is for the Mashiach coming. Okay, that's one theory. The other theory says that what? What is this 3rd pasuk? Yimloch Hashem leolam Elohayich Zion. So the rabbis, what did they do when they constructed the Kedusha? They put Zion there. Why?
The place of
Okay, but put it in context of what we just said. Baruch Kvod Hashem Imkomo. Okay, or this is something that if I'm telling you that God's glory is going to be with you, even as you go to galut, you go to exile and all that kind of stuff, but still, what is important to me? No, that you're not going to forget Zion. Don't get too comfortable in Beverly Hills. And by the way, that is a reference to something that we see all throughout our liturgy. There's a lot of references to Israel, to Yerushalayim specifically. Why? Because the fear is what? Not when things are bad. When things are bad, you remember the good place. But when things are good. Okay, so and the rabbis knew that this is temporary. At some point, the Jews are going to feel very comfortable in exile. And then what? They're going to forget about Zion. It's not Vaishman Yeshurun Vaivat. It's actually a different pasuk from like 2 weeks ago. V'shachachta et Hashem Elokecha, and then that kind of stuff. So the rabbis putting together those tefillot as we go into Galut and as we are already in Galut, realize, okay, you gotta have like all those reminders about Yerushalayim, right? We break the glass under the chuppah. That's exactly that. We say, right?
It also sounds like the light that was created, that was the creation that was saved for the righteous.
Okay.
The new light, maybe all narrative, maybe all.
Okay. So now the rabbis need to find kind of an elegant solution. I want to stick Yerushalayim there, and I need, right, because that's every Kedusha has like this idea, but I need to stay within the theme of the light, luminaries, nature, all that kind of stuff. So this is what I came up with. Or Chadash al, a new light you shall shed upon Zion. That's Messianic time, redemption, all that kind of stuff. So we have Yerushalayim, but within the context, within the theme of light, luminaries, nature, all that kind of stuff, that which is the whole what's going on in the bracha. Some actually say that this is what we call the Or HaGanuz. So if you remember the story of creation, there's light, but we learn first day, but the luminaries are being created only on Wednesday. So what happens on Monday, Tuesday? No, it's not. Vayomer Elohim yehi or. That's Sunday. So there's light, but there's no sun and moon and stars. So what kind of light is this, right? A light bulb, yes. No, so the tradition is that was a light, a godly light, whatever that is. And that was, it's saved for the Messianic time, and it's hidden. Okay. So this is kind of what's that? So according to many, this is that light, Or Chadash. It's like a new light. Maybe it's the old light that's going to make a comeback. Some commentaries actually say that. Some people say, no, it's a new light. Because when we come back from exile, it's a new thing. Okay, because it's a Messianic time, it's redemption. Now, yes, and it's totally okay because rabbis wrote that text anyway, so it's fine. There were people just like us. Okay.
A new song, right? We're going to sing a new song.
Okay. Yeah. Renewal and rebirth. Yes, that exists all the time. So now you remember we're talking about creation, revelation, redemption, right? As being the three themes that we see throughout, right? Or we talked about past, present, and future. We're going to see that more in the Amidah. But there are several elements or several motifs or several, that our tefillot are structured around, especially Shabbat. Okay, so we have creation, revelation, and redemption. That's not mine, that's Franz Rosenzweig, based on his reduction of the 13 principles of the Rambam. So if we have in this bracha, we have creation, okay? And then we said revelation is the next bracha, but let's think about the kedushot for a second. Just take the kedusha. So this is kedusha in creation, that, you know, is part of creation. The next one is going to be revelation. That's going to be in the Amidah. And then therefore the kedusha that's being pushed to mincha later on, the kedusha de sidra, is going to be redemption. And indeed that fits perfectly with the themes of Shabbat, because we have Shabbat of creation, Shabbat of revelation, and Shabbat of redemption. What is Shabbat of creation? Well, it's just the story of creation. And the culmination of creation, or the last act of creation, is Shabbat. And therefore Shabbat becomes a symbol of creation. Right? Zecher le'maaseh v'reshit. We say it in the Kiddush. Right? Okay. What is the Shabbat? The other, I don't want to call it type, but the other characteristic of Shabbat is Shabbat of revelation. That's Shabbat Sinai. No, it's not only Yetziat Mitzrayim. Shabbat is also, it's Shabbat of, well, Yetziat Mitzrayim is connected to Sinai. It started in the Exodus and culminated in giving of the Torah. So what is it that we have there? It's Shamot Yom HaShabbat LeKodsho. That's the 10 Commandments. And from there we have all the prohibitions and all the laws of Shabbat. And indeed, what we're going to see in Shacharit, and specifically in the Amidah, which I don't know if we're going to get there today, but if not today, then next week, that's going to be the theme of the Amidah for Shabbat morning. It's going to be revelation. It's Sinai. How does it start? The middle bracha, Yismach Moshe b'matnat chelko. Moshe is going to rejoice. Moshe rejoiced in his gift. What is that gift? It's the Torah that Moshe received at Har Sinai. And what's going to happen with the third Kedusha, as I said, that's going to be redemption. Because that's happening on Shabbat Mincha. That's the afternoon. What is the theme of Shabbat afternoon of Mincha? That's redemption. Okay? That's the Shabbat of the world to come. All our prayers should be accepted, even though before that, but it's the taste of Olam Haba, whatever that is. Redemption. Okay, we're digressing. So this is this bracha. And we see how, now, when it comes to the Kedusha itself, there's another element. We have past, present, and future. So the past is this Kedusha, for example, because when we talk about nature, we talk about creation, we talk what happened. Okay? The present is the Shabbat of revelation. That's also the present. That's going to be the other Kedusha. What do we do in that Kedusha? That's during the repetition of the Amidah. So if here, in this Kedusha, we tell the story, we relate to, let's call it memory. It's the past. We experience. So what we're going to do is we're not going to talk about the angels. We're going to talk about the past and, no, we're going to act. We're going to assume. We're going to do it ourselves. That's going to be the next Kedusha during the repetition of the Amidah. That's the present. And then the third Kedusha is going to be in Mincha. That's the future. because that's the messianic time, that's the future, etc. So memory, experience, and let's call it hope. That's the future. Okay.
Is that like the Shabbat Liturgy? Why do you have to have two meals?
You have to have 3 meals. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's a festive day. It's a festive day. You eat like, you don't do intermediate fasting, you don't do any of that stuff. You don't skip meals. You have nice meals on Shabbat. It's part of that. Okay. So this is the Yotzer. Let's move into the next bracha, the Ahava Rabbah. Yeah.
So it's sort of like talking about as
Yeah. Okay. No, it started with this. Look, Ahava Rabbah Avtanu. You've loved us, great love. Okay, and then because of our forefathers, because of our ancestors that trusted you, and you taught them those laws of Chaim. Here comes the big deal. Ken techonenu utlamdeinu. Therefore, we ask you to teach us as well. It's like when you come to somebody and you tell them, hey, I want you to do this. No, you don't do that. Hey, listen, remember I did that favor to you? You remember all the times I helped you out? Now I need, that's basically that's the way it works. What? Why? Why not? It's not. It is. It's not only that. It's not only that. I'm reminding you of our relationship. Okay, in a more subtle way, by the way. But when I want something from my wife, I said, it's like, honey, it's like that's already tells, we have that relationship. I'm counting on that relationship. And then I say, could you please, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's the same idea. Okay? Yeah. And remember, look, those blessings, all those blessings, all those fields were written by rabbis. These are not verses from the Torah, right? And they were written by rabbis, and they were written for us. So it is, yes, we're talking to God, but we're talking in the way that we people are talking. That's the way we interact with other people. Okay. And then like the whole thing is in the future. רחם עלינו, תן בלבנו להבין ולהשכיל, לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמודותיך באהבה. We ask you, God, that you'll teach us, have mercy on us so we can understand, we can learn, so we can benefit, we can teach. Why teach? Because if you learn something and you don't pass it on, then there's no point. The whole reason why we learn is so we can pass it on. Okay? And we ask God to infuse us with his Torah and all that kind of stuff. This is kind of like the focal point of this bracha. God who chooses his nation Israel with love. The whole point is love. How does the bracha starts? Ahava Rabbah Avtanu. You've loved us great love. And because of that love, you chose us with love. That's basically summarized the whole bracha. By the way, the evening is very similar. Ahavat Olam Beit Israel. So the nation of Israel is the subject of eternal love. And then Abocher B'amo Israel Be'ahava. Ohev Amo Israel, I'm sorry, in the evening. Ohev Amo Israel, God who loves his people Israel. Okay? Just as a kind of a side thing, this in the Reconstructionist Sidurim became an issue because theologically they did not, this idea of God choosing us, favoring us is not something that works. So therefore they had to adjust that. Correct. And that's exactly the response. But in in Reconstructionist Sidurim, it's that text is a little bit. I have to check it out. I don't remember by heart. I remember Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. The Reconstructionists, I don't remember everything by heart. Yes, but the idea of that because of that love, he chooses us is something that doesn't sit with their theology. So
That's to have like an extra burden, a special burden.
listen, you're preaching to the choir. But anyway, so that brings us to the Shema. The Shema, as we discussed, is yeah, is those biblical passages, three passages, and we're all familiar with them. Two interesting points. If we're already talking about other denominations, the second paragraph, Vayam Shema Tishmeu, is missing from Reform liturgy completely because the whole concept of reward and punishment, something they don't believe in, and therefore it was eliminated. Same goes for, by the way, the first part of Parashat Tzitzit, of the third paragraph of the Shema. They pick it up. Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai. So the whole idea of Parashat Tzitzit is not there. Why? That's for practical reasons, because the main service in Reform synagogue is Friday night and not Shabbat morning, and therefore, and in early Reform, actually, men were not wearing talitot, and in the evening you don't wear a talit anyway. So therefore, that part was eliminated from Reform liturgy. So basically, what you're going to see in Reform places, the end of the first paragraph, and then goes Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, which is the end of the third paragraph.
What did they say so that you will remember the mitzvot? Or is there?
The mitzvot are on. No, but the mitzvot are on your heart and between your eyes. It's not the fringes, okay, I get it, but it's still. Anyway, so that's okay. That's that. The rabbis tell us that by the recitation of Parashat Tzitzit, the end of it, at least, Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tim kedoshim. Ani Hashem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim is what? What commandment are we fulfilling here? The Chirat Yetziat Mitzrayim. Okay, the Mishnah says that everybody has an obligation to remember the Exodus every day. How do we do that? Right here. No, the recitation of that verse. Okay, so how do the rabbi explain the whole idea of tzitzit, how that's supposed to help us? So the tzitzit, right, those strings, there's the ptil chelet, there's the blue. Some of us use now blue again, some don't, whatever, that's technical reasons. But so the blue is supposed to remind you what? Okay, first the ocean reminds you the sky, and the sky reminds you Kisei HaKavod, and because you remember Kisei HaKavod, you remember God, and therefore that's going to keep you safe from not doing stupid things. Okay, fine. Remember, when the Mishnah talks about this idea of Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim, that obligation to remember the Exodus, this is before all this blessing of redemption was developed. Because if you flip the page, and you will see there's a whole long blessing here that talks about the Exodus. So what are you talking about? Okay, but we have that because of that. Because the end of Parashat Tzitzit talks about the Exodus, i.e., redemption. Therefore, the whole blessing that we have here is a long blessing about redemption. And it ends with Baruch Atah Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. Now, what are the references of redemption that we're referring to here? Well, look, if you look at the Ezrat Avotenu, right? The helper of our forefathers. Here we go. So Goel and Moshiach, that could be also even before that, but like really clear references are going to be what? Mimitzrayim ge'altanu Hashem Elokeinu, u'mibeit avadim peditanu. You took us out of Egypt. You took us from the house of bondage, like, we were slaves. Kol bechor merakta, that's the 10th plague in Mitzrayim. U'v'chorcha ga'alta, redeemed the firstborn that were not killed. And then later on, as they left Egypt, V'yam Suf Bakata, it's the split of the Red Sea. Bezedim Tibata, and the Egyptians that drown in the water. V'didim he'evarta, who are the Yedidim? It's the Jews, right? They crossed through. But okay, so there's a description here of the ultimate redemption of the past. Now, let me ask you this. Oh, and because of that, that leads us to what? Shirim v'tishbachot, okay? And what is the shir v'tishbachot? What is the praise that we're going to quote? Which one? Shirat Hayam. If it was good for enough for the Jews back then, the greatest song in the Tanakh, right? They sang the song of the sea after crossing. If it was good enough for them, it's good enough for us. And indeed, we have a quote, actually, two quotes from Shirat Hayam Michamocha Ba'alim, right? It's the only line that made it in Hebrew in the movie, the Disney movie. No, it's not the King of Egypt, the Prince of Egypt, right? Da 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 da, and then so that's the only line that made it in Hebrew in the Disney movie. Anyway, so we have a reference to that quote, and Hashem Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed, which is the culmination. That's the end of Shirat Hayam. Interestingly, and this is where we're going to end with, because next unit is starting with the Amidah. If you flip the page to page 420, the top of the page, the word Tzur Yisrael, the rock of Israel, became extremely relevant and the kind of the inspiration for a modern tefillah. Exactly. So I want to say it was, I gave a whole shiur about the prayer for the state of Israel. I don't remember now what, but I think it was like composed like in final version, kind of like about 51, 50, 50, 51, whatever. So Rav Herzog, who actually wrote that, Shai Agnon made some editing on that tefillah. He used that Tzur Yisrael, he used that term Tzur Yisrael. Not only that, the declaration of the state of Israel used that term Tzur Israel. Because there was a whole debate, right? You had Ben Gurion and, that they didn't want to have anything religious in the declaration. However, you had the religious people like Zerach Berhafting and the chief rabbis and Rav Herzog, whatever, that they wanted to have like something, religious. They couldn't come into a compromise. And I think it was Zerach Berhafting, which was eventually the ministry of religion. I think it was him that came with that compromise. And he said, let's put the word Tzur Israel now. Tzur Israel is the redeemer of Israel, the rock of Israel. In our terminology, it's reference to God. But Tzur Israel is also the strength of Israel, the might of Israel. And it was good enough for Ben Gurion and Moshe Sharet and all those guys to accept it. And therefore, so the term Tzur Israel made it into the Declaration of Independence in Israel in 1948, and also for the Tefillah, for the prayer for the state of Israel that was composed 2-3 years later. Okay, next week, same time, same place, and we're gonna delve right into the Amidah.
So they eliminated the word law in order not to have these references. Right?
Well, the word Vegoalo was added to the Tefillah Shlom Amdina. It was not here. Tzur Israel Kuma Be'ezrat Israel, and Be'eretz Israel Kama Am Yehudi Uve'ezrat Tzur Israel. I think something like that's the way. So the strength of Israel, or the God of Israel, whatever you want to, whatever the way you choose to look at that. Okay.